Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are tuning in from today. Welcome to another Hygraph live stream. We're going to be doing more live coding today. We've been doing live coding for the past few weeks, and I think it's fun. It's a good time that hopefully is had by all. We're going to be working a little bit more in Astro today. We're going to be working on some things around our Hygraph recipes, which are all things compiled by the amazing senior technical writer we have named Romina. She's amazing. And we're going to be looking at some content models in the Hygraph recipes documentation, and we're going to be combining those with Astro to make some banners from a completely and utterly blank Astro project, which I always think is a fun thing to do. Start very minimal and work our way up. So let's dive in. I'll share my screen, but along the way, do feel free to ask questions in chat if you're on a platform that supports chat. If you're not, come on over to the YouTube channel or our Slack community at slack.hygraph.com and let me know what kind of questions you have, as well as any additional types of streams you'd like to see. Anyway, I do want to mention this is from our Hygraph docs that we're going to be working from today. Which is the recipe section. The recipe section is a section dedicated toward content modeling. So figuring out some of the best practices for modeling your content, for making your API, for setting up your editing interface, all of that in one spot. We have a whole bunch of different recipe, what we're calling cookbooks, centered around banners, buttons, card grids, CTAs, headers and footers, image galleries, navigation. We also have this page sections cookbook as well. That's our latest one. We're not going to work on that today. We're going to work in the banners today. And as I go to the overview, you can see one of the nice things is for the cookbooks, we actually have a project that's clonable for each of the cookbooks, which means that you can click this button and you can get all the models that we have today in a project ready to go for your API, etc. We got numerous people saying hi. We got, of course, the amazing Romina. We've got Gabrielle, we've got Angie, and we've got the amazing Tim Bennix. Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning in today. So we're going to take this cookbook. We're going to take a look at it inside of Hygraph, and we're going to marry it to this amazing, utterly blank Astro project. This was created running npx astro create. And when it asked me if I wanted to have any default files, I said, no. I said, let's start blank. And you can see I just have this kind of open area here. I did go ahead and install Tailwind because I figured we'll use that. And I set up a very, very simple Hygraph client by using GraphQL request as an npm package and running it through with my Hygraph endpoint. So we'll dive into that more here in a second. But I already also have this project. I mentioned you can clone it. You can clone it from that link that I posted. Did I post that link? I'm not seeing that link. Let me post it again. You can come on over to the recipes and our documentation, and you can grab the cookbook and the cookbook project, all clonable again from this link here. You can go grab that if you want to follow along, or you can just watch and chill and hang out with me for a little bit. All right. So in this cookbook, we have a few different things. We got some models set up because there's a reference a banner in here as well. But we're going to start with just the simple banner. Simple banner is everything you need for the simplest of banners, right? We've got a title, we've got a little bit of a description. We have a set of links. You can see they are multiple. The links are also a component, which we'll dig into here in a second, and an enumeration called banner theme. We'll see if we get to banner theme today, but we'll experiment a little bit. The link component is one that you can also find over in the cookbooks, and I believe the buttons, but also maybe in the CTA cookbooks. This is a component that's very heavily used kind of across the board. And you can see why. It's got a few things set up that you might need for creating a link. Because not only do you want your link to have a label and some sort of URL, but if you're linking to something internal to your Hygraph project, you don't actually want to use the URL because that URL could change. So instead, you can actually reference another model and bring in the slug from that. And we'll get into that a little bit when we build this out in our queries. So yeah, we're going to start with the simple banner. We actually do need some content. Oh no. We have a problem, Houston. All right, let's open up Classic and see if we get the same issue. That was literally working 10 minutes ago. So let's log into Classic instead of Studio and see what's what here. Go to content. All right, you can see here we have no content. And I'm going to create, I probably need to create another, we can just use the references banner. This is actually something that has all the banners listed in it. So we'll give it a, oh, this is the references. I want all banners. That's what I was planning on doing. So you can see here we have all the banners that are available here. Let's go ahead and add a simple banner to this. My banner title. And you can see we have rich text here for our description, which means that we can add in all sorts of stuff. But we're going to keep it simple. We're going to say this is an amazing banner. Let's go ahead and add some bold in here just so we can have that. That allows for italics amongst other things. Let's add a link in as well. We will have this be our external link, and this will just go to hygraph.com. Do we want to open this in a new tab? If it's not internal to this site, yeah, absolutely, we want to. Let's go ahead and add in a second link too, so we can look at both of these. Internal link, and we're going to add an existing document, which we don't have any right now. Let's come back to that, and we will add in one to get some content there. And so let's go ahead and save and publish this. And actually, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reference this document. Actually, book. Let's add a book in here. My book here, description. And again, this is just so that we can have something to link to. And let's go back to our all banners. Let's edit the all banners, and let's add another link here. Let's grab add existing document. We made a book. So here's our book. We're going to link that. And let's go ahead and have my book as the link label here, as opposed to my book here, which is the title. So we'll be able to see that in the query as well. Save and publish this again. And then we have our first data, which let's go ahead and take a look at real fast. Let's grab the ID, because this is going to be the query we're going to use to build out the quick homepage that we've got. All right, so we want to grab an all banner. I like how the plural here is all banners, but we want an all banner where the ID is equal to that ID. And then let's go ahead and just echo out the ID. There it is. And let's grab the simple banner. That's all we're going to grab for right now. I could grab everything piece by piece, but again, that's not what this model is really intended for. This is kind of intended for showcasing each of them, and we can do that one by one here. So let's grab the title. Let's grab the links. Actually, let's save that for a second. We're going to grab the banner description. I'm going to be bad and grab the HTML for now. We'll look into maybe turning that into the AST later. Let's grab the banner theme, the ID, and now let's construct our links. So we need the external link if it exists. We need the link label. We need the Boolean for the new tab. And then we need the internal link, where we need to destructure some content off of those. We know it's going to be the book right now, so let's just get the book name. This would be where if we had a slug, we would put the slug in here, right, for this link. And let's grab the author and do the same thing. We're not actually getting an author, but if we did have an author, we'd want to make sure that we have that. So then we get our data back. You can see here's the page that's bringing in. We have a simple banner on it. The banner has a title, etc. This is an array component, right? It is a multi-use component, which means that it is coming out as an array. So we will want to grab a loop around that. And then we've got null for the theme, which is to be expected. We have our links coming through where the external link exists. And here is one where the external link is null, and our link label and our internal link here. We get the ID and the book name, all of which is coming from this query. So we need to build our page data in Astro. And if you're not familiar with Astro, it is a static first meta framework. So think along the lines of a Next.js or Nuxt.js, but done differently. Static first. We had this idea of Astro files, pages, and components. And also, if we get to it today, which I'm hoping we'll have time for, we're going to create an interactive component with React inside of this. So we'll actually have a carousel for our banners, which is a great thing that this simple banner is an array. We can have multiple banners here. So first and foremost, we need to get our first set of data. So I'm going to import that client that I created. Here it is from utils client, and we're going to use that to make our request. And this is for data that's going to be loaded. Anything in this area is going to be loaded either, if we set this up for SSR, it'd be loaded on the request, but we didn't. So it's going to be loaded via our build time here. So anything inside of the gates here are going to happen at that time, request or static build. So we're going to const our data. We're going to await, which anything in Astro between in the front matter here, between the gates, is an automatic async function, which is really nice. We don't have to worry about writing a function in here that's async. Everything is top level async. So we can use await here. So we're going to say await our client.request. We're going to pass it a query of some sort and then get stuff back out of it. So let's have our query be a separate piece here. Let's say const query equals all of that fun stuff there. So typically, if I were doing this, I would build this to be a dynamic route, and then I would loop through all of the banner content here. For the purposes of our demo today, we're just going to be using this single document inside of Hygraph. So I'm just going to hard code that ID in there and get the data back out. All right, so we're going to save that, and let's go ahead and make sure we're getting what we expect. Console log our data. Let's put that inside of object notation so we can see it. Data has an all banners, so we're going to go ahead and destructure all banners off that. Make sure that it continues being proper here. Here it is, all banners, and you can see that that is this page, basically. And then we get the ID, and then we get the simple banner that we're looking for, simple banner being an array. So let's go ahead and take this and get that banner going. So we don't need that console log anymore, although it might be nice to see all of our data. So we'll console log all banners dot simple banner. And here's more data. So this will help us as we kind of work towards the actual template for this. Now, in the future, with Astro's new content layer API that we explored a few weeks back, In fact, there's some things coming in the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned for that. We're going to have a tool that partners up with Astro on that. This would actually also be much more type safe, and we'd have a lot more information. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a nice improvement to the way that you work with Hygraph and Astro in the next few weeks. We'll have more announcements there. All right. So coming into our body, we actually want to loop through this. And if you're familiar with, say, a JSX, the notation is going to be very, very similar here. We're going to take our all banners, and then we're going to take the simple banner array and loop through it. So all banners dot simple banner dot map, and then inside this map, we're going to take the banner itself, and we're going to spit out. Let's go ahead and have this be just an implicit return, where we're going to spit out the HTML we want this to be. So let's just make it a div for now so we have something to work with. So inside the div, we'll have a headline. Let's make it an H1, even though we probably don't want to be an H1, maybe an H2 here, but we can talk about semantics another time, where we're going to echo out the banner dot banner title here. So we'll save, we'll come on over to our Astro project, and here's our banner title. No styles yet, nothing going on. Again, with Tailwind initialized, all of our styles end up being wiped away. All of the browser specific styles are gone, and we have to add them back in. But let's take a look at what else we can get here. We're going to want our HTML. So to do that, again, in this kind of cheap way, we're going to use div and the set HTML property that Astro gives us, and we want to set it to banner.banner description.html. So the HTML property on our banner description. And let's go ahead and close that div. We'll go on back over. You can see here it's coming in. So we're working along. We're getting that going. Then we have a banner theme. Again, we're not going to worry about that quite yet. We have the ID, and then we've got the links. So the links are another array, which means that we need to use that map syntax again. We could, it might be a good time to start thinking about how we break this up. So let's make a component for that real fast. We'll make a component that takes the entire object for it. So we'll make a components directory that will have, let's call it a button component, make it an Astro component. Put our gates up here, and then we need the props that are going to be passed to it. So we'll have const, we'll call it, I guess, link data, maybe, that will come off our astro.props. And then from here, we can do a very simple style. I know right now that we're going to be using probably something from Flowbyte. So let me grab the code for these buttons real fast. And we'll use this for our button style here. So we have this. It's got the button label is going to be here. And the button URL will be here. And all these styles, we're not going to worry about too much. We'll just have them all be the same currently. So we'll save that. We'll come back over here. We want to grab our button. Let's see if it will autocomplete for me. Please autocomplete. No, of course not. So we will need to import that up here. So import our button from components/button.astro. And then I need to pass into our button, which shouldn't be like this. It should be a self-closing tag. We need to pass in the, what do you call it, link data, which is going to be the banner dot, actually, we're going to loop through it, right? So we're going to loop through banner dot links dot map. It's going to take the link data, and we're going to return out for each of these a button with link data equal to link data. So this should work if I haven't typoed anywhere, and I'm relatively confident that I haven't. No errors, good to see. Let's go back to Astro, and we've got two big old buttons. They are the same with the button URL and the button label, so now we can actually go in and we can work through constructing that. And do let me know along the way if you have any questions over in chat, either in your platform of choice or head over to the YouTube channel to ask in chat there if your platform does not support chatting with me today. All right, so we're getting our link data. At least I assume we're getting our link data. We'll head on over to the button. And let's go ahead and console log that because I am curious. I can't remember the structure. Memory is not my strong suit here. Let's console log that link data, which you can see here. We got. We've got external link and we've got link label, new tab. All right, so a few things that we can do here. Let's go ahead and get our URL set up differently, right? Because we had this idea where we've got external link or internal link. So I could do this in my template. I could set this up as a ternary down there and I could make the URL work. I think it's going to be better if I do it in my front matter here. So let's set a new const that will be our final URL. And this will be equal to, let's say, if there is an external link, we're going to end up with a ternary anyway, but this might be easier. External link, which needs to come off of link data, external link. So if that exists, then link data external link. Whew, I'm typing a lot already. I might prefer to have destructured this, but that's okay. And again, maybe it would have been better to have done this in the template, but I think I'm going to be passing this every time. So I'll keep it here for now. So if link data external link exists, which I think I'll want to do one of those there, do that. If not, we'll do the internal link. And again, maybe this would have been better suited to like a full conditional, because what if internal link doesn't exist too? Probably should work on that in my content model. All right, so we're going to take a look at the internal link and we'll say that the URL would have been the slug, right? If we had a slug, but we don't have that. So we'll say that it should be equal to internal link, link data dot internal link dot, we'll say book name for now, right? And I could, if I wanted to, slugify this, but I'm not going to for the moment. We'll let this exist as is. And then we'll be able to pass this final URL. And instead of doing all of that ternary nonsense in my template, I can do it in my logic up there gated. And then I do know that I will have a link label either way. So this will be link data dot link label. Whoops, label. Save that. And you can see here we have external link, which is, if you can see it, it's real tiny down there, hygraph.com, or my book, which has the not URL of my book here. But you can see the label is pulling from that data, not from the final page. Because again, you probably don't want to pull the final page's title in because that might be a long one. You probably want to be the actual label for the link. So we've got our title, we've got our description, and we've got our multiple URLs here. So let's grab a little more styling just from this flow byte block. It's one of the services I like to look at and grab the community stuff from when I'm just doing quick educational content like this, because it looks nice and doesn't require that you sit here and watch me type out all these classes. So what we want to do is on our index here, we have our banner. We have this div, which is going to contain our banner. Let's see if we need to do anything else here. No, I mean, we can do some max width stuff, but I think we'll set that around our banners instead of setting it on the banner itself. So let's start with this class, actually, which you can see it's got some grid columns in there and stuff like that, but I'm not going to worry about that for the moment. Class equals, this is margin right, auto. Wonder why it's not margin X. We'll make it margin X auto. And actually, let's do set a max width on this. So let's say max W of let's do 6XL just to have something there. So we'll have that. Again, I don't necessarily care about this. And there's lots of things that we would want to do in terms of the responsiveness of it. Let's grab our H1 styling with the classes here. Let's set, what else do we need here? I'm not going to worry about this because the paragraph is meant to be just a small thing, and we could have more than that in there. So I'm wondering if I want to do that. Let's maybe grab, you can see they're actually passing max width to Excel on these to set something specific. So let's grab that. Let's grab the margin, the font, the text. Yeah, let's grab it all. That'll be okay. All that's fine. And instead of being on the paragraph, we'll have it be on a div. And then the anchors, we already have styles on there. So let's see what this gets us. A relatively clean banner, all pulling from those. And again, like we probably want to look and get a div around that. What are we doing here? They're setting it as flex, but they're not putting a div around it. Interesting. Guessing everything is set to their columns, so that makes sense in the way that they're doing it here. But let's not do it that way for now. All right, so we have a banner, very simple banner. We've brought this in again from Hygraph, from our simple banner style here. But let's go ahead and add a second one in, and let's talk about how we might play around with that a little bit. So let us go back to our content. Let's duplicate this entry. I didn't want to duplicate the entry. Why did I click that? Whoops. Let's say never mind on that. And we want to duplicate the banner here. So we're going to add a simple banner below, and we'll call this one my second banner. This is a great description of a second banner. And this one will just have one quick link to hygraph.com/docs/recipes, which is what we're working from today, in case you missed the beginning. And we'll open that one in a new tab. Ooh, we haven't dealt with the new tab. Let's also do that while this publishes. So we can come to our links, and we have a button. So on this anchor, what I want to do is, if this is new tab true, I want to open a new tab. So I want to set the it's been so long since I've built it. Anchor open in new tab. I can never remember. It's a weird one. Target blank. That's right. So if that exists, then we're going to want to open it in a new tab. So target is going to be equal to. Thanks, Gabrielle. I love the slight delay in the stream. So like coming in and getting answers from stream that I got from Google very quickly. But yes, absolutely. I used to do this so much. I used to work in agency land, and we were throwing together, websites on, a weekly basis, and everyone wants target blank. I'm kind of curious to see how this works here, to see if this actually breaks or works the way I expect it to. So what we'll do is, if link data dot new tab. Oh, that's coming through as null, and null will be falsy. So yeah, this will be fine. So if this, right, we'll put the ternary in here so we can see how that works on Astro as well. If link data new tab, then blank, else, I think if I do, let's see what happens with the blank string and see what that gives us. All right, so come back here. Now external link should pop this open in a new tab. It does. I love that I typoed Hygraph here. Hygraph. It's a great one. And then my book, which doesn't exist as a URL, this should open. It does in this tab. All right, so we're good there. Okay, Gabrielle's got a good point. Like we do want like no opener and no refer. I'm not going to do that today though. Absolutely a good thing for SEO and for other purposes there. I'm not going to worry about it. That's extra code for an educational purpose that I'm not doing today. But yeah, target equals blank. That's opening it in a new tab every time. And you can see now that we've refreshed also, we have our second banner. This is absolutely not what I want out of my banners, right? I don't want them stacked on top of each other. So what we're going to do, we're also going to go back to my agency days, and we'll see how well I can get this up and running in a new methodology. So I don't know what the cool, hip, new slider and carousel libraries are out there, but I do know that Swiper.js existed way back in the day. It still exists and actually has multiple different types of components. So we're going to use Swiper.js with React with Astro islands. And I'm going to see, I have not done this yet. So we've got 30 minutes, and there's a reason that I kind of got us through, and I'm only doing simple banners today. I want to focus on this a little bit because this is something that I think oftentimes is one of the first kind of small hurdles with Astro, but it's one of the superpowers, right? Is the islands architecture and the ability to use whatever type of front end library you want. So I originally kind of thought, do I want to do vanilla JavaScript next to React and kind of showcase both of those? We'll see if we can get through React. And if we can get through React, I might come back and show you how we might implement this in vanilla JavaScript as well, because you can do it either way. And I think that's a really cool thing. So I do know that we are going to probably have it autoplay, but I don't think I want to do that right now because we actually do have a different model that we can look at for that. So let me go find kind of a simple one here. Let's find, we don't want that one. Don't want all the effects. We do want infinite loop, but maybe not that one. Let's see, horizontal slide. So many choices. Here we go. CSS mode. I don't know. CSS mode sounds good. I like CSS. So let's pull up React. It's going to open a code sandbox, and we're just gonna swipe some code because it is Swiper after all. And it's one of those things that back in the day, this is definitely back before a lot of remote work. I worked in an office with everyone else, managing a team of developers, and we couldn't help ourselves. And it was in the era of perhaps the children's television show Dora the Explorer, and Swiper no swiping was a thing that got yelled in the office quite a lot, especially if Swiper decided to do weird things for us. So let's take a look at how this is being implemented. So we are going to need to install Swiper, and we're going to grab Swiper React. We don't need any of the things up here. We are going to need the CSS that's going to come with that. We've got a few different modules that we're getting from Swiper, and then we're going to have the Swiper component. We're going to have Swiper slides, and then yeah, that might just be it. So we're going to work with this generic version to begin with, and then we'll put our banner inside as each of these Swiper slides. So first and foremost, we are going to need to install Swiper. I'm not sure why I didn't have the basic Swiper page open, but I did at one point today. All right, we're going to npm install Swiper, which of course had the $sign. I hate when that happens. All right, so let's npm install that while we go. And then we also need to add React. So let's open up our Astro docs as well. Astro add React, because by default, you do not get React with Astro. Again, it's a minimal, it takes a minimalist approach. And since it's assuming you're not going to have all of these additional things, you only install what you need, which is totally the way to go. All right, and I do absolutely adore that we have the ability to add. So we're going to npx astro add React. I think it might ask us a question. Yeah. So do we want to install all of this? Well, if we want to use React, we absolutely do. So yes. And then it's going to ask us, do we want to modify our Astro config to import React and to put it as one of our integrations? Absolutely yes. Thank you for asking. Then we need to worry about our compiler to make sure it compiles properly. So compiler options JSX, React JSX, sure, probably what we want. And then theoretically, we're done. And we can start building a React component. The React component can also be rendered at build time. So we'll get into that here in a second, but I think that's also a really powerful, interesting thing. So let's build out a Swiper component. And I'm kind of thinking this through on the fly as we go here. So we're going to have a Swiper, and this time instead of .astro, we want this to be a JSX component. And oh boy, am I going to have to kind of remember all of this on the fly. So instead of having front matter on this, we're going to do things very much in the kind of React way. So we need to go back to our swiper docs, which we're not going to use the docs. We're going to use this. And we definitely need to import all of this. Swiper CSS, CSS navigation, and CSS pagination. And then we're also going to import all these components for the modules. Sure thing. And then we are going to, let's see, do we want to, yeah, we're going to default export. That'll be fine. We're not going to have it be app. We're going to have it be our component name, which is unfortunately the same as swiper, and that might be a problem. So we will, let's see, export default function. What do we want to call this? Swiper wrapper, I guess. Let's see. Oh, we had the function keyword, so we don't need the arrow function. Sorry about that. So function swiper wrapper. And then we're going to basically immediately return out, I think, exactly what's going on here. All the way down to that, I believe. Yeah. So we're not going to do an implicit return because we might want to do a whole bunch of other things. So we have swiper. We've got a whole bunch of properties, which right now I'm not going to be worried about. I'm going to choose to allow my my component that I'm installing, my third-party module here, to do the thinking for me. And let's save that. Let's make sure that we're keeping an eye on the console in case we get errors. And now let's do it above our banner so we can keep an eye on things. We're going to just bring swiper wrapper in. And I don't have any props I'm passing yet. So theoretically, I can add this here. And that's going to allow it to be initialized. It's not going to run the JavaScript yet, though. So theoretically, this should just build out. Yeah, it's building out the HTML, but you can see it's got these arrows. The arrows aren't doing anything. And that's because I'm not actually using front-end code. I'm not shipping any front-end code to the browser yet. There's no JavaScript happening other than the build time JavaScript. So what we need to do is we need this to, when this loads on the page, bring the JavaScript with it. So we have a few different ways of thinking about this in Astro land. Let's see if it's in the documentation here. Getting started. Because this is all about the islands architecture, and I don't think it's going to talk about that here. So let's see if we can find Astro Islands. This is all why it's cool, which I agree. Here we go. So what do we actually want to look for? We want to look for client directives. So let's use Algolia up here. Client directives. All right. So we have a few different ways of thinking about it. We can do it when the page loads. That's a very high priority. We can do it when we get our first idle string. We can use it after a certain amount of time. We could have it load when it's visible using intersection observers. Again, behind the scenes, we don't have to worry about that. This is a new one. I don't really know what that does. Root margin. Optionally, a value for root margin can be passed to the underlying intersection observer. The component JavaScript will hydrate when a specified margin around. So that's if you want to, like, way above it, you know, if you're scrolling down the page, fire when it reaches a certain threshold. That's cool. That's a nice refinement they've got. Client only. So this would be if this didn't provide, if we didn't want to provide a fallback, right? If we only want this to work on client load, we'd say client only. And then you can also do custom client directives. I've never done that, but that's a cool thing as well. So let's go ahead and for today, let's say this is going to load on client load. Probably not the best performance, but this is a pretty high priority thing up here. So we'll say client load. And so theoretically, we save this in, everything loads, and now you can see the pagination comes in. The CSS is all sorts of wonky up there, but you can see we are getting this here, and the JavaScript is running. So now what we need to do is we need to decide how this is going to render. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think I think what I want to do is I want to refactor already, which happens if you don't fully think through your architecture before you just start coding. Always think through your architecture before you start coding. Because what I think I want to do is I want to refactor my wrapper into an Astro component, and then actually use the swiper component itself as that JSX, so that I can put inside of it other Astro components, right? So I can build this out using a banner component, I think. So like if we wanted to, I could just grab this HTML, right? I could pass this HTML and have each of my swiper slides have that HTML, but that's not dynamic. So what we want to do is, instead of this client load being here, I mean, I could pass the data to it and I could build it out as JSX, and I haven't made a component yet. So maybe let's do that for simplicity and for the 20 minutes, right? I think I would want this to be an Astro component that then imports and uses the swiper JSX. But I think for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab each of these, and this is going to be what we end up with in our swiper slides here. So just to see, this isn't going to, yeah. So the swiper slides are going to be what we end up looping through. So what we can do is we can go ahead and say, what are we going to call this? We're going to get a prop off of this, and the prop, we want to call it maybe slide. Each slide is something. So slides dot map, and then each of these will be a slide, and we'll implicit return that, right? All that stuff that we had. So slide, instead of link data, we're going to have gotten that somewhere. And then banner title. So instead of banner title, we'll get slide dot banner title and slide dot banner description. And then for the moment, comment out this, because that'll just give us errors. This will also give us errors. And then we need this data, right? We need the slides to come in. So let's grab that off our props. And then we need to pass that into our props in our index. So here, instead of looping through, which we'll continue looping through so we can keep this here, what we actually want to do is pass the slides property, and that's going to be all banners dot simple banner. That's the array that we want to go in there. And error. There we go. All right, let's see what we got for our error here. Yes, this is not technically an error. It's a warning. Check the top level render call. Yeah, because we do need to have a key, because at this point we are in React land, and for a loop we need everything to have the right thing. So on our data, do we still have our data up here? We're getting our link data. Simple banner. Here we go. So we get an ID. So we will use the ID of each of these banners for that key. So it's a nice thing that we already have that. So in our loop for our slides, which in fact, these need to be swiper slides as a component, we do need that. So let's say this is a swiper slide. Key is going to be equal to our slide.id. And then the swiper slide is going to wrap this div. Now I can probably look into the documentation, and I can probably have this be like swiper slide as or something like that. We might look at that in a minute, but we'll have an additional wrapper there and we'll see what happens. All right, so we do have some height issues here, but you can see already our banners are in this rotation area, and we do, I think, want it to be an infinite loop. I thought I grabbed that, but maybe not. Infinite? Nah, okay. That can't be that easy, right? That's fine. That's just an optimization we can make later. But you can see, like, we do get all this stuff built in for free, which is super handy. Like, we get the graying out of this. We get the pagination. Interesting, the pagination is not clickable, but that's fine. And we can go back and forth here. And then we also had the fact that our carets here are left and right angle brackets for the clicking those icons. They're outside, and then we have the nice firm width here. Now, why the height isn't working, I'm not 100% sure. And again, this goes into how Swiper is working, and it's not getting the height automatically, which is concerning. So let's look up Swiper.js. Let's see if we can go ahead and debug that. Swiper.js dynamic height auto resize, which is what we want. All right. So this is the vanilla JavaScript version, but I'm sure we can figure it out. Space between, I don't think we care about. Calculate height equals true. So I bet that's a prop that we can pass to our Swiper component. Let's see if we have some types. What was it called again? Calculate height. I don't see a calculate height in here. So we might need to look that up with React. Swiper.js, React, dynamic height. That feels dangerous. If I'm being honest, that feels super dangerous. Height 100%. And if we can't get it, we can't get it. All right, we'll come back to it. Because the next thing that we need to do, chat, you should keep me honest here. Is this even getting, oh no, it's there. So yeah, it all exists. Let's double check that it does exist. So we take a look. We do have the HTML, although interestingly, we're in React mode. So set HTML ain't gonna cut it here. Okay, now I get to remember how React likes this. This is dangerously set inner HTML, and then it takes, I'm gonna have to look it up because it's weird syntax specifically to be weird. Dangerously set inner HTML. Why didn't it autocomplete? Because it's like an object syntax, and then let's see, it takes a specific property. Here we go. This is what HTML, the underscore HTML. All right, so we go double curly brace here, and then we have the HTML property, which is slide banner description.html. So now I'm curious, was the issue we were having, before I go back and look, was the issue we were having with the height a Swiper issue, or was it that we just didn't actually have HTML and we weren't setting a height because it wasn't calculating? Let's find out. And look, it is there. It is there. And when we get a little bit bigger, you can see that it's setting it all properly there. So I think the interesting thing also, like these would expand and get bigger and smaller. There are ways probably in Swiper of not doing it. These are things I definitely remember from my time in small agency land. We used this a lot. One thing that we will do, let's go ahead and space this out a little bit better. So we'll have PY, I don't know, something big, 10. There, that's a little bit better. Does 20 exist? Yeah. So this looks a little bit nicer. And again, there's a lot of things that can go into this, a lot of things that we can go deeper onto in the styling. But really what it amounts to is this exists. Now we do need to get the links in here. And this is where we start going astray, and where React does what React does. React takes things over. This has long been one of my issues with React since it launched, right? Like I remember going, all right, we can move away from jQuery. That'll be great. Oh, React really wants it just to be these little bits, these little islands. Like React kind of talked, not actually islands, but they talked about like, just bring the component where you need it in your application. but it very quickly ate your application every time. And it still does that to this day. It's just a little bit better about it. So yeah, so if I want to do this, right, my button component can't be an Astro button component anymore because, well, can it? I don't think that it can, because what that amounts to is compiling an Astro component to, you know what? I'm curious. I don't think this will work, but I am very curious about it. We also don't have the link data in this structure anymore. But if I import button from button.astro, again, I don't think it's intended to work like this because it builds at a different structure. But what do I know? Let's see. Didn't error in the terminal. Good first step. Does not load here, and that's because it's erroring on the load because it's trying to get that, and that's not a React component, right? It's not actually there. I was wondering if maybe it just like compiled the HTML and put the HTML. No, of course not, because all that data, when it reloads that island, when the client loads, it's no longer in the same kind of situation. Banner is not defined. That's because Banner is full of error. All right. So what we need to do is we need to refactor our button to, instead of being an Astro component, which I'm going to be sad to lose, it will be a JSX component. And the JSX component can be used wherever because Astro can build that build time, which is, again, a reason to quite enjoy Astro. But we are going to have to completely rebuild this as a JSX component, and that requires some refactoring. So this will become JSX. That's fine. That's probably also fine. And then we have all sorts of things we have to worry about. So we're going to export default function button, which is going to have, what are our props? Link data as a prop. It's going to return then this anchor is what we return. So let's bring this up here and let's clean that a little bit. All right. So then we're passing it link data. Let's see, but we need to move this inside here. And then we're not going to do that concept there anymore because we're getting it directly from here. So link data, which let's not log unless we need to. We can still do our final URL changes, which is nice. And then we return that out. All right. Errors. Unterminated string literal in button.jsx, which I don't think is there anymore. And then index.astro doesn't need the button anymore. Well, I guess it kind of does, right? Because we're still doing that. Oh, yeah, that's weird. Whatever the autocomplete happened there, whatever VS Code tried to do to help me, missed the end quotation mark there. Banner is not defined. Where am I using banner? Nowhere here, right? Oh, yep, here, but that's in the map. Why is banner not defined? That's probably due to the error that I was getting. And if we don't need button and we comment out all the old way that we were doing it, refactoring on the fly. Banner is still not defined. That's probably because in button, so yeah, we don't actually need to comment that out. I don't believe in button, we probably are looking for banner in some way. No? Swiper? No. Button is not defined now. That's because it's breaking. All right. Let's get rid of that. Why is banner not defined? It's in swiper.jsx, but we just looked at swiper.jsx. Where are we expecting to see banner? Banner title, banner description. So why is that the case? Oh, because banner.links. All right, so it's slide.links.map. All right, and then of course it is do I have an ID on these? Oh, you can see it's already populating. Cool. If I go into API Playground, I don't know that I do have an ID on this component. Links. Oh, I do. I'm not getting it right now. So let's update our query to make sure we have an ID on our links. And when we have an ID, we can pass that ID into our swiper, and the key is going to be equal to link data.id. And that should solve that issue. And now, just in time for the end of the stream, we do, as a matter of fact, let's reload this. See, class. Yes, we did refactor. So we do have to come in here, and instead of class, this is now class name. And let's see, any more errors? Let's reload. Let's clear our console, reload. I've got another class somewhere. Where's my class equals? Class equals. Not here, but I bet in swiper. Yeah. So let's find and replace. There's 3 of them, so that's not a big deal. Class name equals. Save that in. And clear console, refresh. No more errors there. And now we have an interactive island with our banner information ready to go and ready to have these links clicked and opened in new browsers, new browser tabs. Which, hey, look, speaking of, this opened the recipes. We have been working from this data inside of our Hygraph recipes, which I will post in the chat right now and also put up on screen, because they are an amazing resource if you want to learn how to model your content in a decent way. Now, we just worked with the simple banner today to create this kind of interactive banner. Inside of this, we also have the idea of actually having a carousel. So if we come in here and we go to our schema, we do, inside of the components, have a banner slider, which can take banner blocks, and the banner blocks are various types of things here. So what we can do is we could actually have this wrapper, and we could pass into it a lot of the things that our third-party component expects to have, right? So in our swiper file, you can see that we have a bunch of things, right? We've got navigation, CSS mode, pagination, mouse wheel, keyboard, modules we wouldn't really want to make. But what we could do is we could say, do we want this to autoplay? If we want to autoplay, how many seconds do we want to autoplay? What kind of other interactions do we want to have in here? So we could actually use this, which is a very simple banner slider, right? We could add more fields like this slider timer to incorporate data that we need in our component and give the power to our editors to modify that on the fly. So they could then use this to make whatever style banner component they need when they insert it onto a page, however that looks. So yeah, we've got a few minutes. I'm fairly happy with where we got to today. Again, not the most interesting banner in the world, but we got to take a look at a few things: how to get our data into Astro, how to make some Astro components, how to convert from Astro components over to React components so that we can make this happen with the interactivity, how to use the client directives when we're pulling these interactive components into Astro so that we can load it at the right time. If this banner weren't loading at the top of the page, we'd probably look at client visible. If it were loading, but we want to make sure it's maybe a heavier load, like maybe Swiper isn't the best carousel library in the world anymore, I don't know. If we were doing that and it was like a really slow load, we'd probably want to add that margin in the client directive. So there's a lot of different things we can do to massage this, to play with it, and to get it exactly where we need it to be. Not to mention, inside of the data set for this, again, you can go clone this project directly from the Hygraph recipes. We do have other styles of banners, including one that has a background image. Again, we didn't even touch the theme, but we are getting an enumeration theme that looks for dark and light mode, so you can swap that out, or any keywords that you need your editors to be able to select from. Don't give them a background color, give them a theme, and then you handle the theme in your CSS or in your classes or however you're handling that. There's also more complex things, again, with different blocks, or you can use references in your banners as well. So a lot of different things that you can do there. All of that's available with explainers in the recipes, so be sure to take a look at that. And if you have any questions along those lines, or along the lines of anything Hygraph related, I do want to encourage you to come on down to the community at slack.hygraph.com. I'm in there. Romina, who's our amazing senior technical writer, who made the recipes guides, she's in there. Our engineers are there, our product managers. We're happy to answer your questions, to handle anything that comes up along the way. And speaking of which, this is all perfectly available in the free accounts you can get for Hygraph. Nothing we did today is in need of a paid account. There are limits on components, but this is obviously a relatively small use case, so not a lot of components here. And if you're interested in more information, obviously hygraph.com/docs is your one-stop shop for all the information you could get on Hygraph. So yeah, with that, I think we're good to go for today. I appreciate y'all spending your Wednesday morning or evening with me today. I hope you learned a little something. And with that, again, come join us in Slack, but also keep doing really awesome stuff with Hygraph. And I hope that you come back and visit next week as well.